Hey guys, wanted to do a video on something that's kind of been bothering me for a little bit, and just thought I'd share it with you guys. In case you can't hear it, I have a cat that's in heat in the background, and she is driving me bananas. And I'm doing a few things around the house, like washing some clothes, so you might hear a little background noise, but just bear with me. I promise I'll have some content in this one. Anywho, it's always puzzled me why Evanston Funeral Home came to get Kenneka Jenkins' body from the Crowne Plaza when they found her in the freezer. Like, who called them? Did someone call them specifically? And who did call them specifically? Or was it some kind of, they do like a rotation here of, I hate to compare it to, but like when you're in a wreck, and you call the police to come out, the tow truck companies will be rotated out, and they'll go through a list, and then they'll start that list back over. So I don't know how that works there, but it's always bothered me that Evanston Funeral Home came to pick up Kenneka in the first place. I don't know if they knew at that time that Leak and Sons were going to be doing the arrangements for Kenneka, but why it bothers me so bad is because the funeral business is one of the most segregated businesses of all. Especially, where I'm from, like we have the black folks, when they pass away, they go to the black folks funeral home. The white folks go to the white folks funeral home, and that's just the way it is. And with a few exceptions, my ex-boyfriend is African American, and his brother passed away, and his wife was white, and she had his arrangements and funeral at a white funeral home in town. So it does happen, but for the most part, it's very segregated. So that's always bothered me why they were even there on the scene in the first place. Because to me, what should have happened, this is just my opinion, this is how it would have happened here in my town. Leak and Sons would have sent a van or a hearse or whatever to the scene to pick up the body and take it with them, or take it to wherever they needed to go. If she needed to go to the medical examiner's office, etc. So I don't know if the medical examiner's office has a rotating list that they go through to have people transported, to be fair about it, or what. But actually, in my town, if you were going to the medical examiner's office, which is very rare, because the only time that really happens here is if you have a suspicious death, which is very rare. I live in a very small town in Western Kentucky, as you can tell from my accent. I'm sipping on my sweet tea. And that's an inside joke. But the medical examiner's office has their own transport, and they come and pick up the body themselves. So, anywho, it always puzzled me why Leak and Sons never did the transport to the medical examiner's office, or why the ME's office never came to get the body themselves directly. But I guess in a bigger city, they probably don't have that, the capability to do that with as many bodies as Chicago's putting out. So, I did a little digging to try to find the answer to that. I didn't find the answer to that, but I did find some very interesting stuff, and I thought I would share it with you guys. So, I do want to make mention, though, that it's very strange that Evanston Funeral Home they had to travel 40 miles to go to Rosemont to pick up Kenneka Jenkins. That's one way. So I found that to be quite interesting. Anywho, let me get back to what I found. Well, a lot of people also, I just want to touch on this briefly. A lot of people still live in a bubble and think that what is said is the absolute truth, and you cannot get them to change their mind about it until they're ready to be awoke. But the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office, they've been involved in some scandal, and If you think that it is impossible for someone to switch a body, or if you think it's impossible for some foul play to happen at the ME's office, you are so wrong, because it happens, and it happens quite a bit. I know of several instances where, bodies have been switched and on accident, or supposedly on accident. We don't ever know that. A lot of foul play has happened in the medical examiner's office or coroner's office, depending on where you are. So I started to do a little digging on this Evanston funeral home today, and why and who called them, etc., etc., etc. But specifically, since we're dealing with Cook County, I ran into a few things that I wanted everyone to be aware of, so that you are full of knowledge about the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office. So, I'll start with where let's see. We'll go here. No, we won't go there. I apologize. I'm usually a little bit more organized. Alright. We'll go here. This is from the Huffington Post, and it's from 2012. October the 17th, 2012 to be exact. And then it was updated on the 18th. Anywho. The title of the article is Cook County Morgue Inspection Reveals Disturbing Night Shift Shenanigans. Inspectors on a surprise visit to the Cook County Morgue caught night shift workers asleep on the job and watching movies on county computers, according to report released Tuesday by County Inspector General Patrick Blanchard. Basically, I'll summarize this article. They came in at night. There were people in there nodding off, sleep, full on asleep, not just dozing, like full on snoring, watching movies. But what was interesting is that the Chicago Tribune reports county investigators also found, quote, thousands of hidden documents dating as far back as 2004, end quote, that were supposed to be entered into a computer. It says all but one of the employees seen sleeping have been placed on temporary suspension. It says, according to the Chicago Sun-Times, further interviews on the matter revealed that such behavior is not an isolated occurrence. It says the ME's office has been under a microscope ever since reports of bodies being stacked in a storage cooler surfaced earlier this year. Remember, this is 2012. Once word got out, Cook County Board President Toni Preckwinkle, and you need to know who she is because she is the Cook County Board President. She's a former alderman also of, I think, the 4th Ward there in Chicago. It says she assured some in the office, quote, will lose their jobs, end quote, as a result of incident, ultimately leading to the ousting of 2 top administrators. Another note in Mr. Blanchard's report indicates that Cook County Assessor Joe Barrios rebuffed a subpoena from Blanchard's office for an unrelated investigation. Barrios handled the matter being investigated internally. It's the second time Barrios has insisted he's not beholden to the Ethics Board standards because he is independently elected. In June, Barrios was found in violation of county ethic rules for hiring his son and sister and fined $10,000. Blanchard's report highlights other incidents reported in the Tribune that include nepotism and fraud. It's ironic, isn't it, that this man, Mr. Barrios, was found in violation of county ethics rules for hiring his son and sister and fined $10,000 for that, when Rosemont is over there just full of nepotism and nobody thinks that's a problem. But like I said before, that is illegal, and it is obviously illegal. He got fined $10,000 for it. But Rosemont lives by a whole different code of ethics over there. So now we got 2012. We've got workers in the ME's office just basically goofing off. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to warn you, I might have some cussing in here, and I apologize if I do, because I know it offends some people, but I was raised by a former United States Marine, World War II war veteran, and it just is what it is. I apologize for that. Okay. Now, here are the pictures that they were talking about of the Cook County morgue with the bodies being stacked up. And, I'm warning you, it could be kind of graphic for some of you all. You might want to, if you're listening to this and kids are around, you might want to get them out of here. Not too graphic, but still graphic enough. And I tried to make this bigger and make the screen bigger, and it still only showed the photos at this size. So, this is Tony Preckwinkle coming out of the ME's office, and go to the next set. Here's a picture of the bodies that were laying in tarps, kind of stacked up against the wall. This is disgusting. Trying to go to the next photo here, and it's not wanting to go. Okay, here's more bodies stacked up on shelves, on top of each other. It looks like some are even on the floor. And the last photo is the same thing. You can see some of the bodies actually exposed. I see some feet and a couple of arms, some shoes, it looks like, a couple toe tags. Let me get to the article here. I don't think this is part of the article. Anyways, it says she was disturbed and disappointed and discouraged. And she promised an overhaul of the ME's office where workers say bodies have been allowed to stack up in a crowded cooler. So, it's really sad to see that. So I don't, it's just disgusting. I think this is from a blog. Okay, this is a man's blog. It's called Chicago History Cop. The title of this particular one, Cook County Medical Examiner's Office is a joke, especially on Valentine's Day. And this is written by Ray Johnson, February 14th, 2016, at 6:16 in the morning, if you want to get specific. He says, a member of my Facebook group, Chicago History, The Stranger Side, posted an article yesterday about how the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office is getting pressed for locating autopsy reports for the St. Valentine's Day massacre that took place on Valentine's Day, creative name, huh, in 1929. I just about lost my mind when I saw that you have to know the history to understand my reaction. The Cook County Medical Examiner's Office mission, according to their website, is to ensure public health and safety by performing autopsies and post-mortem examinations to determine cause and manner of death for individuals who die in Cook County. Prior to 1976, Cook County had a coroner who was an elected official, did not have to be a medical person, who presided over a public inquest similar to a court hearing in which the coroner's jury looked over evidence presented by various people to help determine the case of death. These cases were public, and the records created by this inquest are public records as well. I conduct a good amount of research as part of my profession, and I request a good amount of public records from various sources, and have never run into a public office as inhospitable to the public's right to records as this office. I can't believe the excuses coming from this office as to why they cannot provide records. Again, I am not talking about any records since it became a medical examiner's office, but referring to coroner's inquest records. I can only speak about my personal experiences with the office because I don't like relying on hearsay accounts. I have only requested 3 coroner's reports for myself in the last 10 years, and can say that I have never received any reports and only excuses when I would call to follow up. In one instance, I called about a request and always received the same answer. The person on the phone said that the person who pulled records from the, quote, warehouse only would go once per week, and the records were quite the mess, and it could take about 6 months for a response. Now, I completely understand about how records can sometimes be a mess, so I gave it 6 months and then called back. The person on the phone asked me how old I was. I said that I was 42 years old. She then said I shouldn't expect the report until I was 82. I am not kidding. That was the response. I actually had to laugh, and they laughed as well, and I think they may just have been frustrated with the whole process and really didn't know how else to respond. I pretty much gave up requesting documents after that until I became involved as a researcher with the family members of Barbara and Patricia Grimes. I had been researching the 1956 murder of Barbara and Patricia and had the opportunity to meet Jim Grimes, who was one of the younger brothers of the girls. I had read a number of accounts of the coroner's inquest from the newspaper, who were in the public, newspapers, plural, who were in the public room reporting this public hearing. I wonder how many times I can use the word public in a sentence. Yes, it actually got me a little tongue twisted. Jim Grimes expressed some interest in receiving a copy of the transcripts of the inquest for the family to have. They were never given a copy back in 1957 when the inquest took place. I told him that he might have better luck sending a letter to the medical examiner's office and stating who he was. The Grimes sisters' murder is one of the most famous unsolved cases in Chicago history. We received a response back from them, wonders never cease, and they said that the file was over 400 pages, so that we would need to come up with over $1,200. That's right, you heard it correctly, $1,200. It was actually slightly more than that, but I can't remember the exact number. Jim called the office and explained that he was the living brother of the girls, and while the employees there were very kind and professional, they stated that the amount that they have to charge is set by Illinois state statute. And guess what? They were correct. I found it hard to believe that there could exist a state statute that could be at odds with the Illinois Freedom of Information Act, but there most certainly is. Of course, Jim Grimes could not come up with $1,200, and I didn't have the money lying around, so I told him to remind the ME's office that they are required by law to at least let us review the file in the office at no charge. They did agree to let us in the office to review the file, but only as someone sat with us, which I understand for security reasons, and they limited us to 90 minutes. We could take hand notes, but no photographs. And I'm going to butt in right here. In the state of Kentucky, you're allowed to charge 25 cents per copy. That was the last time I checked. I haven't checked, haven't had to make those copies this year, but they usually change those if they're going to change them in January. And sometimes they will change them at the beginning of their fiscal years in July. So that is true. And also, this part about letting them review the records and have someone sit with them, they do that here in Kentucky if you pull like a circuit court clerk file, which is public record. I don't know if people truly understand that that is public record, but it is. And you can go in there and request to see the file. You cannot you cannot take off the prongs and make any copies of anything in the file, but you are free to make handwritten notes, and there will be somebody sitting there watching you. A lot of times they're kind of understaffed in the clerk's offices, and they will just kind of glance at you here and there, but we quite often would make copy or take snapshots with our phone of the documents that were just so lengthy we couldn't even take notes on. So, anywho, back to this article. Unfortunately, we only reviewed the copies that they had made, so we don't know if there were other files that weren't copied. After our 90 minutes, we took our notes and left. Of course, in the defense of the employees, they were very friendly and they really seemed to care, and at one point recommended that maybe we should have a fundraiser to raise the money so that the family could have a copy. They said that they could hang on to the copies for a while, but if we couldn't put the money together, they would have to shred the copies. Many of the excuses I heard from the ME's office had to do with the organization of records and the lack of staff. I actually wrote Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle a letter and a note on their website stating what the issues were and that I had access to volunteers that would be willing to help organize things, as well as running and making copies for persons requesting copies, but that letter went unanswered. I also suggested that maybe the older coroner's files should become part of the Cook County Clerk of the Circuit Court archives. I visit the archives about once per week and have always been amazed by their efficiency and superior public customer service. They provide access to court records going back to the Chicago fire of 1871 and prior, and the requests take 1 week on the average to pull from the warehouse, while the cost of copies are minimal. Again, that suggestion went in one ear and out the other if it was ever heard at all. So basically, my beef is with the fact that the statute that governs the cost of copies for transcripts in the custody of the ME's office, $5 per page, which is, I just can't get over that, are directly at odds with the Illinois Freedom of Information Act. There is a loophole in the Illinois FOIA that states in 5 ILCS 140/6, Section B, Subsection B, Section 6, Subsection B, except when a fee is otherwise fixed by statute. You can read both for yourselves here, and if you would like to read them, Illinois Freedom of Information Act, you can go there and read, and then the State of Illinois Public Act 096. Anywho, I thought that was interesting, his exchange that he had personally and had wrote about in his blog about the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office. A little interesting. Now, so the Cook County Coroner's Office, you know, they got in trouble for having these bodies stacked up. And so here's one thing that they did to try to ramify this. In February 13th, 2014, this is an article from off of 6abc.com, which is a news station there in Chicago. The ABC 7 team, I-team. All right, they did an article that says, Cook County Morgue recognized for improvements as it unveils its new cooler. 2 years ago, the ABC 7 I-team uncovered deplorable conditions in the Cook County Morgue. On Thursday, the county morgue received recognition for the improvements that had been made at the facility. Since the scandal erupted 2 winters ago, the medical examiner's office has spent $2.3 million modernizing its morgue, an effort that Cook County President Tony Preckwinkle says has earned a provisional accreditation. So they actually lost their accreditation there at the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office, which is horrendous. Quote, we've made a lot of changes in the last 2 years, and where we are today is truly remarkable, end quote, said Cook County President Tony Preckwinkle. In the same ME's office lobby, where she stood just over 2 years ago to promise change, Preckwinkle helped announce that hundreds of dead bodies stored in refrigerated trucks on the building's back parking lot would be moved into a new $1.4 million automated cooler. Did you hear what I just read? She announced that hundreds of dead bodies stored in refrigerated trucks on the building's back parking lot would be moved into this new cooler. So they had trucks in their back parking lot full of dead bodies. Oh, that's just, I can't even imagine. The automated system runs on a push-button system. It pivots 180 degrees so it can pull the bodies out from either side, said Dr. Stephen Cena, Cook County Medical Examiner, which he is no longer there anyways. Dr. Cena, appointed by Preckwinkle 18 months ago, also has a new computerized system for record keeping and a 25% larger staff. The mood here is very positive. People are happy to work here and very proud to work here now, said Dr. Cena. Not so during the winter of 2002, when employees provided the ABC 7 I-team with photographs of bagged bodies, hundreds of them, haphazardly stacked in a overcrowded morgue, many leaking fluids onto the filthy floor. We're talking blood and just bodily fluids leaking all over the floor. And worse, the medical examiner's office had lost the identities of some. So, isn't that interesting? Here's a quote. Our brother's been in the morgue for 2 weeks, and we're just now finding him. That's unacceptable. That's not right, said Bernice Terry, whose family member was in the morgue in 2012. The ME's office has not been accredited since 2011. Preckwinkle and Dr. Cena hope the new cooler, added staff, and other improvements take the morgue from provisional to full accreditation in 18 months. It should give assurance to those whose loved ones pass through the medical examiner's office that the deceased are treated with dignity, care, and respect, said Preckwinkle. The office says it will be moving bodies from the refrigerated trucks into the new storage area as soon as the new facility is sufficiently cooled. I think that's the end of the article. That just blew my ever-loving mind that y'all got bodies on the back lot in some trucks with refrigerators on them. Man, get the hell out of here. That blew my mind. Okay, and this story right here I wanted to bring to the attention because it broke my heart. If this is the same story. Yes, it is. Okay. This is an article, actually. It says, Families Suffer Through Chicago Morgue Backlog. It's from February 2nd, 2012. And this picture here, it says, the caption underneath says, Workers fill a pauper's grave at Homewood Memorial Gardens, south of Chicago, with remains from Cook County Medical Examiner's Office, which is now catching up on its backlog of indigent burials. Losing a loved one in any circumstance can be a painful experience, but for some families in Chicago, that pain is being compounded by what's been happening at the Cook County Morgue in recent weeks. In the words of one observer, it's a moral travesty. The Cook County ME's office was so far behind in burials for the poor that bodies have been stacking up. Conditions at the overcrowded morgue have been described as inhumane and unsanitary, and there are reports that the department has lost track of bodies. Following efforts to change its practices, the morgue is now trying to catch up and clean it. Standing outside the ME's office, Petty Hudgens Wilkins is visibly distraught. Her brother, Raymond Hudgens, died of a heart attack on October the 8th. He was 59. 4 months later, Hudgens Wilkins says, quote, My brother is still here as we speak at the Cook County Morgue. That was 4 months later. He was mentally disabled, and according to Hudgens Wilkins, the family member overseeing his affairs apparently ran off with the money set aside for his funeral. Now his body sits at the morgue awaiting an indigent burial. The county won't tell Hudgens Wilkins when Hudgens might be laid to rest, nor has she been allowed to view his body. From what she's been told and what she's seen in media reports, Hudgens Wilkins says the conditions inside the morgue where her brother's body awaits burial are shocking. You had decomposition all over the floor, she says. You had body parts sticking out. It was not a sound situation by any means, and no one should be treated in that regard. The backlog. In January, a whistleblower who works inside the morgue took graphic photographs of the grisly scene to the media. The images showed bodies wrapped in blue tarps, stacked on top of one another along a wall, with blood and other fluids pooling on the floor. Cook County Chief Medical Examiner Dr. Nancy Jones, who now is deceased, is no longer giving interviews, but she did initially acknowledge that there was a backlog of indigent burials, and she blamed state budget cuts that eliminated funding for the program last summer. Illinois lawmakers have since restored the funding, but the backlog remains. When Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle stepped in last week to overhaul morgue operations, her staff found 363 bodies awaiting burial in the morgue's cooler. 363 bodies awaiting burial in the morgue's cooler, which was designed to hold no more than 300. That just blows my mind. I had to plug my phone back up. Let's see. The morgue's indigent... I'll show you this picture here. There's 3 ladies standing here with missing posters for their brother. Their brother was missing. It says, Sisters Bernice Terry, on the left, Kim Dent and Sheila Hostetler hold pictures of their brother, Brian Warren, from his memorial service, as well as a flyer they distributed during more than 2 weeks they believed he was missing. And this story just broke my heart. Okay. This is a family's unimaginable pain. The morgue's indigent burial backlog has also exposed other problems. Sheila Hostetler is one of 12 siblings in a tight-knit family. Her 54-year-old brother Brian Warren died December the 29th. Another sister had just dropped Warren off at his Chicago home after church and driven away when Warren suffered a massive heart attack on the street. He was rushed to a hospital where he was pronounced dead. The hospital sent him to the morgue along with his wallet, which contained his ID, and his cell phone. But Hostetler says at the time, she and her siblings had no idea what had happened to him, only that he was missing. Collectively, as a family, we were looking for him, she says. We did all kinds of canvassing. We called the police station. We called hospitals. We called the morgue numerous times looking for him. And the times when we were calling, the morgue said they didn't have him. For more than 2 weeks, Warren's family thought he might still be alive, when in fact he was at the morgue the entire time. That just broke my heart. You always have hope when you call the morgue, says Bernice Terry, another of Warren's sisters. When we found out he was there and the length of time he was there, I think that was the most hurtful part. Going through that, the stress and the hurt, even today, it doesn't go away. Warren's family finally found the hospital where he had been taken to, which told them Warren's body had been taken to the morgue, or was taken to the morgue. But the morgue still insisted he wasn't there. It wasn't until the hospital provided a case number that the morgue finally found the body, allowing Warren's family to have his funeral. It's an unimaginable pain what these families have gone through, says the Reverend Marshall Hatch, pastor of Chicago's New Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church. The shape that the county morgue is, or was, and a millionaire could have fallen dead. Wait, let me reread that sentence. The shape that the county morgue is, or was, in, a millionaire could have fallen dead, been taken to the hospital with ID, and ended up on the morgue floor, unaccounted for and unidentified. And the people, they need to be held responsible and accountable. Hatch is part of a group of Chicago area ministers advocating for families affected by the problems at the morgue, which he describes as, quote, overwhelmed, overcrowded, and dysfunctional. The ministers met Wednesday with the county's top elected official, Preckwinkle. Last week, Preckwinkle announced sweeping policy and procedural changes at the medical examiner's office. Preckwinkle says she's disturbed, discouraged, and disappointed by the conditions in the ME's office. She said her office has been reviewing the management and operations there long before the morgue's problem got media attention. And I also want to make note, too, that when Mr. Blanchard came into the Cook County medical examiner's office unannounced, not only did he find them sleeping and watching Bruce Lee movies, but they also noted that the people that they hire there are, let's just say they're not the most upstanding citizens, and they had been taking items, been stealing items from the bodies, cell phones, jewelry, etc., 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 money, whatever they had. So, I think that's why they keep pushing more employees. So, I just wanted everyone to know that the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office does not have a squeaky clean history of being on the up and up. And I could dig further on that, but I think that's enough to kind of open some eyes and at least let you know what you're dealing with. So if you're getting upset that people think that the body's been switched, here's where some of that comes from, probably, because this has happened, well, so much has happened at the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office that it is quite a possibility that it could have happened. We'll just put it at that. You never rule out something like that, because anything can happen at any time. So, I just wanted to put that out there and fill you guys with some knowledge. And it's a rainy, yucky day in Western Kentucky. And I work thirds, as I've said a gazillion times. And Now that the little noise-making cat has laid down, I think I'm going to lay down myself. But I'll probably will make another video tomorrow on a few other things that I found in some of the research I've done. But I hope this will help you guys in some of your own research, if that's what you're doing. Or at least just give you an idea of what you're dealing with as far as Kanika Jenkins is concerned. Anywho, you guys have a good day and a good weekend. See ya.